we have one final tricky topic to deal with. Right at the end of verse 2, it says that Jesus is the atoning sacrifice not only for our sins, but also for the sins of the whole world. So what does that mean? Let me tell you one thing it can't mean. It can't mean that Jesus actually removes the sin and anger for every person that has ever lived and ever will live in the whole world, whether or not they put their trust in Jesus. And the reason that can't be the case is because if it did mean that, if Jesus really did take the sin and anger of every person that ever lived, if their sin was really taken on Jesus, well, then the sin wouldn't be on them. The anger wouldn't be on them. And so God could not hold them accountable for their sins, those who haven't trusted in Jesus, because their sin has been taken by Jesus. So it can't mean that every person that has ever lived has had their sin and the anger of God for their sin taken away fully by Jesus on the cross, whether or not they trust in Jesus. So let me explain what I think is going on here. On the one hand, the death of this one person, Jesus, is enough to take away the sin for as many people who will trust in him. So if every person who had ever lived and will ever live, if every person confessed their sin and trusted in Jesus, if every person turned to Jesus and was saved, then because of that one death of Jesus, that would be enough for every person's sin to be taken away and for the anger to be removed. That's what we call sufficient for all. Jesus' death is enough. It would be enough for all if all came to put their trust in him. But on the other hand, God knows in advance all of those who will believe in him. And because Jesus cannot remove the sin and the guilt of someone who wouldn't believe in him, because otherwise they would be without sin and therefore could be welcomed into the eternal kingdom, therefore, because God knows all of those who will turn and trust in him, his death only takes effect for those who do trust in him. That's what we call efficient for believers. So as God sees in advance all of those who will put their trust in Jesus, so Jesus' death actually takes effect efficiently upon those who trust in him. So with those two hands in mind, that it is sufficient for all and efficient for believers, with those two things in mind, when John says that Jesus died for the sins of the whole world, I think what John is saying is to this one church that is in this place called Ephesus, this one church there, he's saying Jesus didn't just die for you here in Ephesus as believers, but he died for all believers around the whole world and throughout history. Now that's what I make of it. For some of you, you might be convinced by a different way of understanding those verses, and that's fine.